Higher. Good morning, trade pros. Welcome to Morning Market Update for Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. This is George Papsov, Trade Pro Academy. Hope you guys have had a wonderful day so far. And we're in for a very exciting day. There's going to be some volatility and some opportunities in today's session. Let's get started with the Morning Market Fun Fact. We've got a pretty full update today. So let's get into it. On this day in 2008, hedge fund manager David Einhorn, legendary hedge fund manager that's performed very well over his time, told a room full of high-profile investors at a conference that he was shorting a company called Lehman Brothers. You can't pull that stock symbol anymore because that company is effectively defunct. There is a Lehman Brothers holding that trades on the pink sheets, but it ain't going anywhere. All right, because he questioned the firm's accounting, and he said that they would need a significant write-down in the next quarterly event or next quarterly report, and he's initiating a short position, which ended up being a really great short position because Lehman Brothers was one of the banks that actually failed through the 2008-9 crisis, the housing bubble, and he cashed in. All right, news on this morning's wire at 8:27 in the morning. Reportedly, the United States aviation authorities increasingly believe that a bird strike may have brought down Ethiopian Boeing 737 MAX jet. All right, that's the news that came out. So blame it on the birds. If the software fails and if a plane update and the training isn't sufficient, it must have been a bird strike. Inevitably, Boeing shares are getting a little bit of a lift, and they're headed higher, which is pushing the Dow up, which is pushing all other equities higher as well. So that's the news this morning, giving a little bit of pre-market juice to the upside. We'll see what we get. We're at a very interesting level here. We'll talk about that in the trading room. But early on in the morning, we're getting some optimism starting out the U.S. trading session. All right. Overnight news, U.S. Commerce Department said that they're going to ease restrictions on the Huawei ban of and importing of U.S. technology for 90 days, which is 3 months rather. And that's Wilbur Ross said that Huawei will be able to access U.S. technology for another 90 days, giving them time to maintain existing networks and handset updates. And he told American firms that this is a good time to start sourcing other suppliers. Dow Jones futures rallied on this news. A delay of an event that's negative, that has negative impact, is a positive thing. Even if it's temporary, it's a positive thing on the stock market because things are better than they were just 24 hours ago. All right. China's rhetoric, morning Marky, was that they're going to respond to this, and that's what everyone's waiting in the stock market right now. What will the Chinese response be to this Huawei ban? And there is going to be some kind of response. There's going to be a retaliatory measure, and the markets are very curious about that. They're a little bit on pins and needles on that front, and at any moment, China could come in with the retaliation. So keep a ear out on the squawk. Be a part of a community. Trade with somebody. Trading in your bedroom by yourself in the corner is very dangerous. All right, leads to a lot of losses. Ask me how I know. All right, shares in Shanghai closed up for the day on the news. At 8:18 in the morning, China reported that it has no information on Trump and Xi meeting at the G20 in Japan, despite Trump's earlier announcement. So China refuted that. They said, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't have any info on this meeting that you're saying that you're planning. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin said they had a lot of work to do. This was on May 15th with China, and they said that they're going to go to resume these talks during the G20 meeting in Japan. Donald Trump confirmed that as well. President Xi in China saying they have no information on that event. So that's kind of putting the trade negotiations in a little bit of a slowdown, right? There's no future planned meetings. It ended pretty abruptly. No deal was made. And so that factors into the market. So far, though, it's been shrugging off that news, right? Because I feel like in today's world, no event is a good event for the stock market. When we're in a bullish market, no news is good news. Good news is good news. And bad news sometimes could also be good news. That's the nature of a bull market, all right? As we transition and inevitably hit a bear market at some point, good news will also be bad news. So prepare yourself, but at the same time, ride this wave while it's here. All right, Jerome Powell last night spoke at 7 p.m. Eastern. He made no direct commentary on interest rates or monetary policy, but he did say this, and I'll read to you verbatim. 15 years ago, everyone was talking about whether households were borrowing too much. Today, everyone is talking about whether businesses are borrowing too much. That's what he said at Atlanta Fed's annual financial markets conference that took place yesterday. He cited some caution but dismiss comparisons between the consumer borrowing and the business borrowing that's going on at the moment. When there's low interest rates for extended periods of time, it's bound to build debt bubbles. All right, when you're able to borrow at such a low cost, all right, and you're able to invest it in other projects, as long as that project earns a rate of return above what you borrowed, it's a good business decision. And businesses, for that reason, are taking on a lot of debt. He did cite some concern, but he said this: the Fed's reluctant to cut interest rates based on that. All right. So during that discussion yesterday, it was a little bit more hawkish than expected, a hawkish tone, meaning, a rate cut is probably not the right thing at this moment. And if you look at the Fed fund futures, which track the future outcome of interest rate hikes, they're pricing in a rate cut. All right. And Jerome Powell basically said, look, we're not too concerned. And I don't think a rate cut's the next move, is what he indirectly said through his conference yesterday. Firms and companies have a lot of debt, but it's cheap. And while the debt's cheap, they borrow, and that could create a problem. So he cited some concern, but he did say this: asset prices are not stretched. He's not concerned about asset prices. I'm not sure what asset prices he's looking at to say they're not stretched. But in the Q&A, he said current policy framework has served the public well. Said that using inflation range is one option that they're reviewing in these FOMC meetings, where currently they've pegged it to 2% inflation. That's sort of their target. Whereas now they're discussing the potential of having an inflation band, so maybe 1.5 to 2%, all right, which lowers effectively the inflation target, which means that they're going to pause interest rate operations sooner, even if inflation kicks in. All right. He says does not see any threat of the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency. Recent increase in productivity growth and labor force is a healthy side or a healthy indication for the economy as a whole. Very important conference that took place yesterday, and that was an important speech at 7 p.m. All right, today's markets in Asia: Japan's down 0.1%, Hong Kong's down 0.5 percentage point, China's up 1.2, India's down 1%. In Europe at midday, equities are green across the board. London up 0.6, Paris up 0.5%, Frankfurt in Germany up 1 whole percentage point, and in the United States, Dow's up 0.5%, S&P's up 0.6, and Nasdaq's up almost 1 percentage point, leading the way in gains. Nasdaq's pretty strong, just rebounded now a little bit. But still stronger in the morning, just failed at 74.60. Crude oil up about 0.3%. Now it's fading back down to overnight lows. So it was up. It opened at 63.53. Overnight lows at 63.20. Despite OPEC jawboning and talk about increasing, or not increasing, but keeping the production cuts in place for longer. That's not enough. Crude oil is still selling off. Bitcoin is up about 1%, but back below 8,000, which is a very key level. A couple of weeks ago, when Bitcoin started to take off, we noted the resistance was going to be around 8,000. So we said, look, when we get to 8,000, if you have Bitcoin and you're day trading it more actively, that's a good area to take some profit. All right, because there could be a pullback there to give you another opportunity to get in for cheaper. If you're a long-term investor of cryptocurrencies, and you don't have to bother yourself with the day-to-day fluctuations. All right, what's one day if you're holding this thing for a 20-year outlook? All right. On the docket today at 10 a.m., we have existing home sales. It's a pretty important indicator, and it's a leading economic indicator, so we'll have a look at that, how existing homes were for the past month. 10:45, we have Fed's Evans speaking, and 12 p.m., Fed's Rosengren is going to speak as well. So some Fed speakers, one event at the top of the hour, and other than that, it's going to be slow. Market's got a bullish tone to it. And so this morning, we're going to start with a buying the dip rhetoric. We're going to look for some opportunities for sell-offs on low volume to catch some support and get into a trade to the long side. One thing that worries me, though, we're very close to the point of control, or the 5-day average of where the most amount of volume is traded. And so we could see some consolidation as well. Today might be a bit of a slower day to start. Give it some more time, be a little bit more patient on the open, and the trade will build itself up for a move at some point. All right, that's what we got on the day. Watch Boeing. Boeing is a big driver of the Dow, and there's big news for it this morning. That's your correlatory market for the day, along with obviously the other correlations we follow. But as a one-off, Boeing is a very important stock to watch today. All right, because as goes Boeing, goes Dow. And this report here puts a little optimism into the market. Events that also put optimism into the market, some of Fed Powell's statements yesterday. Also, this Huawei ban being delayed by 90 days. So we could see a little bit of upside to some key resistance levels. Where are those levels? Where can we get up to? Where's resistance? Where's support? We're going to turn around the trading room and go over that now for the Dow, S&P 500, and oil. And we're going to open up our trading room. I invite you guys to come trade with us daily, Monday to Friday. We've expanded our elite trading room. So now we go from 9 to 11 a.m., which is the US Open. In the elite room, we trade 11 to noon Eastern time, which is the European close. And elite members now also have access to an exciting new coverage from 3 to 5 a.m. in the morning, the London Open. So we're basically trading around the clock for the same membership price that it was before. So there's great value. I invite you guys to check it out. If you don't like it, 14 days, get your money back. I don't want money that you don't want to give. All right. This is an investment. It's nothing else. So invest in yourself. We'll see you guys in the trading room. Have yourself a great day. Appreciate you all. Send you love, joy, and happiness. And I'll see you tomorrow. Trade well, manage your risk, trade like a trade pro. Goodbye. All right, trade pros in the room. Let's get into it. A little bit of a rally to overnight highs on the SPOOs, and then we're pulling back. I'll give you some key support levels I'm following with, and I'll show you where resistance lies as well for today's session. And then I'll cover S&P 500, send it off to Marky to do the Dow, and then Steven will cover the oil market. There's a lot of good moves happening already this morning. Let's take advantage.